So the economy right now is mostly driven by consumption, right? I mean, that's more than half of GDP. So 285 million people. What do they need? What do they need on a daily basis? And that's the point to start. That's where the potential comes from, right? I mean, apart from the downstreaming is like a political priority and based on the resources. But what do the people need? So many people every day, So they need, first of all, food.
Welcome to the Indo-European Bridge. In our episode with Ilham Habibi, we shared his thoughts for Indonesia 2045. Today we shift from the vision to precision. I'm joined by Oliver Döhne, Director of Germany Trade and Invest, GTAI, here in Jakarta for the official reality check. Oliver, feel free also maybe just also to add something to introduce yourself, before we continue.
Thank you for inviting me, Timo. My name is Oliver. Like you said, I've been here for 2 years for Germany Trade and Invest, the trade and investment promotion agency of the German government. And so my job is to inform German companies about the economic situation, about business opportunities here, about developments that could be interesting for German companies. So that's what I mainly do here.
Okay, perfect. Excellent, Oliver. So Oliver, you are here on the front lines, right? Like every day. So before we actually look then into the details, into the data, right? How would you actually describe the current sentiment of German European investors here in Jakarta right now?
Yeah, it's a turbulent global situation. So the situation is really fluid, right? I mean, on the one hand, we're talking about a big country with a lot of opportunities, with a young population, resources, but it's also a part of the global situation right now we have like the high energy price. We have the Gulf crisis that hopefully is over now. No? So that's also affecting Indonesia. And it has put the Indonesian currency under a lot of stress. That's although the real economy is still stable, there's some turbulence in the rupiah, right?
Yeah.
And that was triggered by the energy crisis and the Middle East conflict.
Okay. I mean, sentiment, I would say, is a good starting point, right? But normally investors follow the numbers, Oliver, yeah? So let's maybe break down the hard facts. From the GTAI perspective, what do the latest foreign statistics tell us about the volume of the economic corridor and where are we seeing the capital flows?
So the direct investment, right? Is in Indonesia is always comes in cycles, right? I mean, it's not really every year the same. We have seen a lot of Chinese and other Asian capital going into mining and in basic mineral processing, and European investment is really not the largest share, of foreign investors. So it's still for them like a little bit of frontier market here. There's some, especially because European investment goes maybe in manufacturing and less in these mining sectors with it. And in the last 2 or 3 quarters has been a little bit decreasing, the inflow. So the portfolio investment has left the country, and foreign direct investment has also decreased to a certain extent.
Okay, thank you for sharing this very valuable insights, Oliver. Yeah. So maybe also another question would be also then we talk very often about China, right? China plus one. Yeah. Maybe also as a production hub. Yeah, is there something where you also would say you see there shift, yeah, towards China plus one maybe production hubs, or are we still seeing a heavy focus on domestic market access?
For now, investment here is in most cases still focused on domestic market, but it's considerable, right? It's a really huge market. It has almost 300 million inhabitants. But you know, as to be like an alternative or complementary location for China, maybe then Indonesia still has some homework to do to really turn it also into an export hub. You know. So there's some factor that still have to be resolved here in comparison. Maybe other countries like Vietnam, you know, Malaysia, they're a bit ahead, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Talking about the numbers, right? That always tell us where actually then the money goes. But let's also look at what being built specifically regarding the industrial shift. Yeah. So with those investment trends in mind, we see the massive push towards downstreaming. It is the core of Indonesia's industrial policy, but actually for many European companies, they still struggle to find their place. So question would be here, Oliver, beyond raw material extraction, where's the most realistic gold mine for European tech providers?
So you are mentioning downstreaming. That's a very relevant, very interesting field, but for now it's really dominated by Chinese companies, right? That Indonesia more or less invited to have investment here in the country, in the other island like Sulawesi, but Indonesia is not really in the long term benefiting as much as it could from these investments, right? Because they process a little bit, then ship it back to China, and so there's not a lot value added, and so that's why also the Indonesian government is pushing for more value added in the country, and really right down to the ready products, exportable products, like we have from nickel to the battery, you know. So I think German companies could contribute to also to sell on the one hand their technology, their machines, but also to make Indonesia benefit more from their own resources, and to be it like to the whole value chain, have more jobs, more value creation here in the country via maybe German technology, and have really create exportable products here in the country for the world market. So that's one area that could be really interesting, you know, to make Indonesia have their own, and instead of only like having China set up the whole project.
Okay. I mean, Oliver, from my personal experience, or what I hear often from people, yeah, when it comes to investments, or also from German companies, yeah. So often, let's say, when it comes to machinery and everything, yeah, often when the German companies for machineries are active here in Indonesia, they have a partner, a local partner, but seldomly or rarely they do the manufacturing by themselves, right? So this is also something there might be in the future potential.
You mean to have a production?
Exactly,
location?
A production here. Not only selling the German technology, the machinery here, but also maybe have then here the production itself, right?
Or to have like a contract manufacturing. That's one area. Indonesia is also really good. Indonesia specialized companies to do local production here for the German company, for example. You know, there's some example of that in the free trade zones. You know, so that could be one solution.
Okay. Oliver, also I think it would be very interesting for our listeners as well, about the perspective about the business opportunities here in Indonesia. I mean, we talked about it. Indonesia is huge. It comes with a lot of potential. But what would be the opportunities where the SME or European companies could enter the market?
So the economy right now is mostly driven by consumption, right? I mean, that's more than half of GDP. So 285 million people. What do they need? You know, what do they need on a daily basis? And that's the point to start. That's where the potential comes from, right? I mean, apart from the downstreaming, it's like a political priority and based on the resources. But what do the people need? So many people every day, you know. So they need first of all, food.
Yeah.
We both know that Indonesian, they love food. They bond over eating together and so on. There's a lot of snacks every day, but still the variety is not as large when you go to supermarkets. So there's a need in the growing middle and upper middle class, for Western products and in the production of food, because they have really large food companies here, right?
Yeah.
And they are also exporting, like the Indomie or whatever, So in the coffee and in all the tropical fruits, all that's produced here, that has a potential for a world market. In the processing of that's interesting. It's also the biggest industrial sector here. And then in the healthcare market, which is a priority for the government, and there's a huge need for technology, to have the same healthcare standard in the whole country. So that's one thing that could also be interesting in the energy infrastructure. And also we have in Europe also many companies that have equipment for the energy structure, for the grid, for new renewables, and for the energy transition, because Indonesia right now is really heavily on coal, and then make the step, to other forms, and to still have the heavy duty industry running, So we could support them in that, and and several other. I mean, it's so if you watch the kind of machinery that European countries deliver here to Indonesia, there's a lot of different stuff. So that's also the magic of a country like Indonesia, very big, but with an emerging industry. So there's many sectors where there are business opportunities.
Okay, great. And the reason maybe behind Oliver and consumption, that it's a consumer market, right, and a high consumption, might be definitely the size of the country, right, the population itself. I think we are talking about over 280 million Indonesians already. And then one thing, if I remember that correctly, the age, I think the Indonesians on average, they are like 29 years. So that also might be a factor when we talk then about a higher consumption, or why it is a good consumer market. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's also the golden opportunity. If you mention the age structure, right? It's a golden opportunity for Indonesia to make that step in the next 20 years, as long as you have really so many people in an age where they work, right? I mean, it's a different situation in Europe and in Germany, So we have many young people ready to work, and that's really the best time that you should make that jump,
Yeah.
And they have to use that this time where you have so many people ready to work. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we can say, right, it is clear the opportunity exists, opportunity is there, but we also maybe need to address the hurdles that keep the so-called SMEs from capitalizing on it. Yeah. So even with the right tech, the operational reality can be complex. Let's go into the legal framework. So we are also talking here about the topic of TKDN, the so-called local content requirement, the so-called bureaucracy. And this can be sometimes also a concern or maybe a challenge to enter the market. So how should actually an SME balance strict compliance with the need to deploy high-end German technology?
First, this local content that you mentioned is really, as a matter of fact, a challenge for German companies, especially when you want to sell something to the government or a state-owned enterprise here. They have a lot of obligation that you have to create certain percentage of value here, which sometimes not realistic simply, So when they have to do a lot of calculating until they get to that value. But it's also understandable that Indonesia wants industrial value creation in the country, so to create jobs. It's also understandable, So and it will always be there because Indonesia is big enough that it has the right to want that. They can push that through. So, but it has to be realistic. In a certain. We have to make life not so make life easier for German companies with maybe products that will never be produced here realistically, so to open the market more up for these kind of things, and then to see where it really makes sense to have the local production here, not insist too much on everything, built here.
So it's maybe then also, in short, Oliver, a matter of readiness, right? To say local content requirement is good. Yeah, but if it's somehow maybe not possible yet, so then it's not helping that much. Yes, it can be maybe then more like a barrier, right?
Yeah, it is a barrier. But it's understandable from a Indonesian point of view, right?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Okay, then also about regulatory evolution itself. So we have here the Omnibus law, right? And from the desk of the GTAI, has this simplified the operational life of an SME in 2026, or has the complexity just moved elsewhere?
Good question. So the Omnibus law itself made life a lot easier for foreign companies here in Indonesia, open up sectors, made it possible to have like a foreign-owned companies in many sectors. So that was an achievement. So, but it's a bit fluid, and when it gets easier at one point, then maybe it gets more complex in the other. It's not easy to answer. There's a lot of still barriers still there that are always visible at first sight, right? I mean, that was also one thing that will be addressed in the free trade agreement. We'll talk about that later, maybe. So there's still a lot of transparency, right here. So you really don't can calculate all the risk when you're starting up, because there's a lot of things you cannot see upfront, right?
Okay. You were mentioning already now the free trade agreement, yeah. So could you maybe also share a bit more on that for our audience, yeah? How actually this should be beneficial, yeah, in like for several parties, yeah, involved.
So apart from erasing most tariffs, right, which is also very good, at least creates a level playing field with other competitors on the world market, like China or USA here. So there's the topic of non-tariff barriers to trade addressed, with technical requirements, with standards, with the import licensing, So there's we are hopeful that this will make it life easier here for European companies entering the market, because in the past companies have told that there's sometimes overlapping requirements, that you don't know really who's really in charge, which authority, that they can change overnight when products are already on the way to Indonesia, and that they take maybe years to have an import license. So we hear that a lot, but that is addressed, and should, if it's implemented efficiently, that should be a huge progress.
Okay. So I understood also for that there's a long negotiation behind as well, right? So it's not really finalized yet, right? To benefit from this free trade agreement.
It's not really 100% ready. I think there's still some legal scrubbing, but with important details, because it had to be ready, because both parties wanted to have, like, as a symbol of the readiness, the willingness to work together, and that Indonesia is open to different sides, and that Europe, EU really pushes to have new partners and more stable conditions in new emerging markets. So they wanted to conclude the negotiation after more than 10 years or a long time. So not everything is resolved. Some things are still a bit vague, and some things we have to wait for with the outcome. So the principles in it are really a big step forward, but the implementation, we have to wait for that, how efficiently that will be done.
Okay, great. Yeah. So then we hope that this can be finalized as soon as possible, so that companies can benefit from that.
Oh, it has to be ratified, of course. Only by the European Parliament, not by every member state. So that's really a good thing, and by Indonesia, of course. And they want to do it until the end of this year, so that it can start on the 1st January next year. That'd be in.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds great. Okay, so maybe we can see, right? There are already a lots of things ongoing which are positive. Like the Omnibus law itself, but on the other hand, there are still some hurdles itself, right? Some barriers, yeah. So maybe also to wrap up, right, with a final strategic assessment for our audience, yeah. I want to take all these insights, the so-called macro trends, the industrial potential, and the operational hurdles to give our audience a clear takeaway, Oliver. So let's say if you had to give a grade to the investment climate in Indonesia for German SME in 2026, what would it be?
So there are a lot of opportunities, right? A lot of potential, but we have to move from the potential to doing real business, right? To really and to dedicate enough time and patience, and resources to get to know this market and to build up networks, and realize that it's not something that we take along the way, that we conquer along the way. It's really, we have to want it. You have to really, people want to see that you really want it here, that you want to do business with them in the long term, that you want to have stable relationships, that you bring in quality, they're bringing something valuable to the table. Yeah. And that can take maybe longer than in other markets.
Okay.
And so maybe that's the new perception, that I put really Indonesia on the map, that it deserves really a closer look, and it's not an exotic country. It's really one really relevant, big emerging country with challenges, yes, but also with a lot of opportunities. And now it's time to really turn it into business also. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then also, what would be your key recommendation for CEO currently sitting in their office in Europe to succeed here?
Yeah, but to, like I said, take time, take it seriously. You can also come to the conclusion that it's not for me, right? But really take a look, take time, find people that you put here to really check the market, to build up whatever you need here, to use the networks here of the consultants, of the Chamber of Commerce, of our information, to really have a thorough due diligence here, like a check, because Indonesia is really, as I said, too big to be ignored, in today's world, also because it's also like a partner, a country that looks for new trade relations, in the world, and doesn't want to be so dependent on China like it is right now. So they're looking for new partners, and they're also opening the door for European companies. So you have to also communicate better why. Our products are more expensive, of course, than China. We have to communicate that in the right way, and argue with the total cost of ownership of the whole life cycle, that you can produce quality products to the world markets. That we can offer. Not to build it all cheap, and to buy every year a new machine. No, you have a bigger investment, but then you are also capable of really producing high quality products.
Yeah. And maybe then also the proximity, right, to other countries within South Asia, that you could take or use Indonesia as a base, and then expand into other Southeast Asian countries as well.
Yeah, like I said, that's a good plan that Indonesia should have. Yeah, we're not there yet. There's a lot. For example, the logistics was very high here. We have some issues with the qualified labor, but that's also an area where European companies could contribute, in the development of Indonesia. So, and also Indonesia should do that. It should not, rely solely on having cheap labor, because you will end up in the middle income trap, so that you come to a certain point with the nice growth rates, but then you stall. Then it doesn't go further. You don't make the jump.
Okay.
And so Indonesia needs the qualify the labor force and to have like push more for innovation. And there's also a point of where European companies could, in their own interest, also help Indonesia.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing this, Oliver. So we would almost come already to the end, yeah, which is then we ask our podcast guests at each episode for the advice for life. Yeah, Oliver, you are someone, based on your career journey, your path, yeah, you used to live also in different countries. So what would be then also your advice for life to our audience right now?
Yeah, to get inspired by maybe a different way of doing things, to be open your mind, because things they run in a different speed, in a different rhythm, so it can also be really refreshing, to not insist too much and always, on your old ways, but to be, get inspired, by something new without forgetting where you want to go, what you want to do, but maybe. We Germans have tendency to be maybe too stubborn sometimes, and get inspired by this wonderful country and the friendly people, the spontaneous people, So that's one thing that's wonderful here in Indonesia.
Okay, thank you for sharing this. It has been really a very insightful episode today. And thank you also for your time, right, and for your work in the GTAI team, to keep these economic bridges stable. And also for our listeners. So we will link then also later the contact details, right, and the latest market reports in the show notes below. And thank you for listening on the Indo-European Bridge. And see you in the next episode.
It was nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.